So I'm Aaron Swartz. I'm from the Open Library. My job is basically building web applications. Ever since 1999, I built a website where it was an encyclopedia anyone could edit. Unfortunately, it didn't take off because the only people I knew who wanted to edit it were my mom. In 2005, I built a collaborative news site called Reddit.com that's since gotten purchased by Condé Nast. And in 2007, the project I've been working on is this site called the Open Library. So what's the Open Library? The basic question that we were trying to confront in building the Open Library was, what does an online library look like? And after a lot of arguing and debates and thinking about it, what we concluded was that what you want is a wiki with one page per book. You want a website that has every book ever published and lets people contribute more information to that, edit information about that, reuse information about that, and so on in one central place. So some quick facts about the project. Right now we have 6 people distributed all around the world. We're headquartered with the Internet Archive in the Presidio. It's a not-for-profit project. We've been funded by the Internet Archive and foundations, as well as some money from the California State Library. And we're starting with books, with monographs, and trying to expand outward from there if that works. So this is the story of building it. The first part about building it is building the software infrastructure. When you build a website, you basically boils down to these 3 pieces. You've got a database, you've got some glue code, and you've got some UI, the standard model view controller model. So with a standard database, you use something like SQL, this kind of glorified spreadsheet. But the problem is, with SQL, you have all these annoying things. Changing your schema to allow new features to the database is really painful. There's no revision history, so if you open the whole thing up to the internet, people can scribble all over your data and you can't undo what they've done. Unifying types is tricky, so if you have different kinds of objects like dictionaries and phone books and movies and monographs and serials, you can't do queries across all of those without doing a query on each separate table and then merging them yourself. And you hit this scaling wall if you're trying to grow it really big, which is that SQL only works with one single master database usually. And if you try and go past that, you run into lots of problems. So what did we do for the database? Well, we built our own thing, which ended up being called ThingDB. The name might be changed to Infobase. And what ThingDB does is says everything you have is a thing in the database. So at Reddit, we use ThingDB. The different types of things we had were links, we had users, we had sites, we had pages, all of those were things. At Open Library, what we have are books, we've got authors, subjects, and pages again. And in the database, each one of these is represented as a thing, and each thing has a name, which is basically its URL on the site, and a type. So we have books, authors types, subject types, page types, each of which have a URL on openlibrary.org. Each thing is represented by this sort of key value table. So if you look at a book, for example, it's got a title, it's got an author, which is a reference to another thing, a subject, which is also a reference to a thing, maybe multiple subjects. It's got published, which is an integer, and it's got language, which is a string. And one of the nice things about these key value tables is that as you add more properties, you can just add them onto the bottom. So you can add the number of pages, you can add the folk novel ID, you can add this kind of specialized information at a per book level or for all the things in the type. And all of it's stored versioned. So, in this particular example, when we added a field for the number of pages and the field for this folk novel ID, this sort of very specialized thing that we only added to a couple books, all of that was logged with the person who did it, the date it was done, and a comment about the change in the database. And that means you can roll back through time travel to any version. So the nice properties of this system is that everything's a thing, so you can do queries across all of them. Schema updates are trivial. You just add new properties to things as you need them. All changes can be reverted because we keep the full revision history. And you can do this kind of time travel to say, what's the state of the whole database as of a certain time? So then the controller code, normally with controller code, you use some kind of scripting language. And the problem is that doesn't work very well with SQL. You have to learn a special query language just for your database that's different from your normal programming language. You have to decide between a dozen object relational managers, each of which has their own flaws and problems and doesn't mesh well with SQL. And you have to do your own caching system because caching SQL is very tricky and it's not clear where to cache it and so on. And so you also end up with lots of repeated code. Most websites deal with objects, and they have these basic properties. They map URLs to objects, they locate the objects, they display the objects, and they let you edit the objects. And everybody ends up writing the same sort of scaffolding to deal with things like that. And you have the same sort of scaffolding to deal with accounts. Everybody needs to create user accounts to log in users to answer them when they forgot their password. So what did we do? we have this nice, really integrated thing into Python, which lets you very easily access and query the thing.db. So to get a thing, you just say thing.get with the name. You can print out the properties. So it's book.url to get the URL, book.title to get the title, book.pages to get the number of pages. You can just set the properties in the normal way you would set any variable in Python. You just say book.pages equals 275, and then book.save, and it creates a new revision in the database with that comment and the currently logged in user and so on, and the current date and time. And you can do queries very easily. You just say get me things where k.pages is greater than 200 and type equals book, and it returns back a list of things where the number of pages is bigger than 200 and it's of the type book. And you get a list that you can iterate through and do all the normal things on. And a really nice thing is that you get caching for free. Because everything goes through this simple API, it's very easy to cache it. All you have to do is store all the items and all the queries that come back in RAM, and then whenever someone does a save, you just invalidate the item cache for the particular item that was saved, and you invalidate all the queries that could possibly match that item. And then if you have multiple web servers doing it, you just broadcast those invalidations, and then they all keep up to date. The way our site is structured is that we have ThingDB as the database layer at the bottom. We have this special wiki software called Infogami in the middle, and then particular apps like Open Library are built on top of Infogami. And what Infogami does is it takes care of all the scaffolding, so all the URL mapping, viewing and editing types, type schemas, custom templates, user templates, all of that in history and diff is handled for free by Infogami. And of course, it also does accounts, so it handles all of the user creation and forget your password and all that stuff. And your app just sits in plugins on top of it, and it's got lots of hooks into different places so that you can add new features wherever you need them. And then, of course, comes the UI. So traditionally, UI is a series of HTML templates. And the problem with these is that skinning things is very difficult. You have to go and change a whole series of templates on your Subversion repository. Your web designers are kind of constrained because they're not allowed to touch SQL, and so how do you sandbox them in? Plus, your web designers need to learn Subversion or whatever version control tool you use, and sometimes it's really difficult to teach them that. So what we did was we just put all the templates in the wiki. And what that does is it means the web designers can easily work away updating things through their web browser. It means you get skins for free because you just say, okay, the users can also edit templates in the wiki. Users can create their own skins. So we just give them a special directory in their user space where they can put whatever templates they want. It overrides the current web templates we use. And it means that the templates are tied to the data. So if you want to roll back, you can use the old versions of the templates and instead of having to revert your entire code. So it makes time travel work much better. Okay, so that's the infrastructure part. Part two is finding the data. How do we find data for Open Library? The first thing we did is we went to publishers. We got a whole log list of all the major publishers to sign on, sending us their Onyx feeds. Publishers, not surprisingly, want to advertise their books, so they were happy to share metadata about their books. The second thing we did was we went to libraries and said, give us your MARC export. And the libraries were like, oh, that sounds great. We'll call you back in 3 years. So we nagged and nagged and nagged and called all our friends. And, I'm here today to nag you some more. If you have MARC exports, please send them to us. I know we got some exciting ones yesterday. Here are some that we've gotten so far: the Library of Congress, UNC, University of Toronto, and as we announced yesterday, Talus. Yay! So maybe WorldCat will take on that challenge and also contribute their records sometime in the next 100 years. The other thing we wanted to get was book reviews, right? One of the things that will really enhance pages about old books especially is reviews from people like the New York Times, Harper's, the New York Review of Books that explain why this book is interesting and why it's important, that really will encourage people to go out to a library and get a copy of that book. And so I'm happy to say I've talked to all these people and they're willing to contribute book reviews to the project, and so we're going to be integrating those in with the pages soon. And then another part is scanning books. So we get books because the Internet Archive has this massive scanning project in dozens of libraries with 70 people contributing books and hundreds of people sitting and carefully turning pages at machines like these. And then we put them online in this nice little flipbook interface. So that's where we get the data. Then the next step is processing it all together. So there's obviously a lot of parsing, a lot of Python scripts to make sense of the MARC and Onyx, each of which converts it to some intermediate format. And then we run it through merging algorithms like those developed by Karen Coyle for us. And we've just had amazing success with this decades-old algorithm that she came up with. We found dupes even in LC that hadn't been merged properly. and running it on our data has worked really well. And then the next step we're trying to take on is Ferberizing, so to take a whole bunch of books that have similar titles and say these are really all the same conceptual work. And finally, display. So this is the front page of Open Library. You can type in a search term, and you get back a list of books like this. So this is a book page. Each book page gives you a way of getting more information about the book. So we have this sort of buy, borrow, download model where you can find other bookstores that'll sell you a copy or a used copy. You can borrow it from a local library or from one of these book trading sites. And if it's one of the books we've scanned, we link you to the flipbook where you can download that or a PDF or something. Each page also gets an author page, so we automatically generate actual author pages, and we try and feed them with information about authors we get and automatically generate a bibliography for each author. We also do subjects. So one of the big debates we had when we first started the project, where a bunch of librarians came in and they all argued about which subject system we should use. We use LCSH, or should we use Dewey Decimal, or should we use this modified version of LCSH? And eventually I had to stop them and say, we'll use all of them. It's online. We don't have to have this argument. So that's exactly what we're doing. We have BSAC codes, we have LCSH codes, we have Dewey Decimal numbers. We just have everything we can get our hands on. And what we're trying to work on now is letting people browse between different hierarchies. And one of the things we also want to work on is links, not just the Ferber-style links to say this is all the same work, but also more complicated links, like this is an adaptation, and this is a rebuttal or a response, or this is really much better than that other book, or things like that, the kind of things Karen Coyle has been thinking about. We want to integrate those on the site and let users contribute those kinds of links between books. Each page is editable. This is what the edit page currently looks like. In a few weeks, it'll look much better. And of course, the schemas are also editable online, so you can add new properties and they automatically appear in the forums. And you can edit the templates online, so you can create your own versions of the templates or fix bugs in ours and send us email about it. One of the other things we want to provide is scan on demand. So for each book, we want to have a little scan this book button, and for $20, $30, instead of buying an old used copy of this book, we'll have some undergraduate go and get it off the shelf of a library for you, take it to our scanning center. We'll have people at the scanning center page through the book, and then we'll send you the PDF and put it up online with a little book plate saying you were the one who digitized this book and contributed to everybody. And of course, we have one of these huge print-on-demand machines at our office, so we can print books on demand. It's got all sorts of whirring knives and things like that, and very scary. One of the things the print-on-demand company is doing is they're driving one of these to New Orleans, and they're going through all the public domain books we've scanned and printing out copies to refill the New Orleans Public Library. So this is our dream, this kind of web of books online, where each book has a page that's kind of collects all the information about it, all the libraries that have it, all the people that have reviewed it, all the metadata and the catalog data, and puts it in one site where people from Wikipedia, people from Google, people who are just browsing the site itself can find it and then leap off to all the other exciting places about a book where they can do more with that. And to achieve this dream, we need your help. We want your data, so if any of you, happen to be sysadmins at libraries and just can secretly make a dump of your database and send it by anonymous mail to my house, that would be wonderful. If you can present it on a thumb drive, that would be even better. We want your time. It's an open source community project. We have mailing lists. We have an online source code repository. We need all the help we can get. And if you want to pitch in and add a feature that really excites you, or that you want to just help out and help us with some things we need help on, we'd really love that. And we want you. We need more programmers, so we're looking to hire some more people to help us with various aspects of the project, building features on the site, fixing the search engine, doing more parsing, things like that. So please, if you're interested in getting involved, come talk to me, visit the website. It's demo.openlibrary.org, and that's my email address. Thanks. So it looks like we have a little time for questions. Yep.
Is your code for this open source? That's really interesting little pieces like your decouping and your Ferberization routines and stuff like that.
Yeah, everything is open source. I'm not sure the Ferberization stuff isn't checked in yet because we haven't got it working, but it's all on the front page. There's a link to the source code repository, and everything's in there.
When it's done, it will be there.
Yeah, and Ferberization will be there.
Is your scan on demand available now?
Scan on demand is not available now. We're working with UNC to get it done They say they'll be ready to do it in the next couple of weeks, but we'll see.
So is this a potential implementation of that? Can you send books to you guys, put them into our catalog, linking to your open library site?
Yeah, that's the idea, is how it'll work, is that we get a book, we give you back a URL that you can put in the MARC record, and it'll link to the online scan that we've got. Uh-huh.
Online. Do you have any desire to integrate those or plans for that? And how would you go about that?
You know, our policy is basically let's keep putting as many books in until people can play. And if it's only online, we'll just mark it as only online, and people want to filter those out, they can. Yeah, API. So we're hoping to announce the API later this week at a special meeting we've got in San Francisco. But yeah, everything's going to have an API, so you can get any book page in RDF, you can get it in JSON, you can get it in whatever format you want. And we want people to use this as the data source for other applications that instead of having to worry about getting a source of book data, can just use this as their source of book data. Uh-huh.
Where do you get your cover art? Are you getting the copyright issue?
So we get the covers from Library Thing has contributed a great deal of user uploaded and user scanned covers, and we're going to announce a project called Open Cover Thing where you can get access to covers contributed by Library Thing, covers we've gotten from publishers, and covers we've gotten from Amazon. Amazon has stated that they don't claim any additional copyright over the covers on their site, and they're happy to let people reuse them. So we're taking advantage of that, and we got a big dump of covers from Amazon, as well as from those other sources. We want to let libraries use them, so we have an API so you guys can use the covers. Yay! So thanks to Tim Spalding for pushing that. Internationalization, we should be getting that up in the next few weeks too. We have a contract to translate it into Spanish, and so what it'll do is there'll be an option to set your user preferences, or it'll look at your HTTP headers to decide what language it should be in, and it will just replace all the strings. Thanks. Great.